Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aidan Sova, and I'm a proud member of the Emerging Leaders Council of the Legal Services Corporation. I am also a trustee and vice president of the Ann Arbor District Library, allowing me the honor of being the youngest ever Black person elected to any office in the city's history. Thank you to those who clapped and those who didn't. I will see you after this. I am also a product lead at Google as well, but I think that's a little less interesting. LSC's Emerging Leaders Council brings together rising professionals from diverse fields who believe deeply in the promise of equal justice under law. It is a privilege to be a part of that work. As we continue this program about increasing access to legal justice, we turn now to a key question. What is the role of the private sector, especially corporate legal departments, in closing the justice gap? It is now my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Robert Gray, a member of LSC's Board of Directors and president of the Leadership Council on Diversity, an organization that works to improve a more inclusive legal profession and expand access to opportunity. Welcome, Robert, and our panelists.
All right. Batting cleanup before we go to the ball field, is a distinguished group of corporate leaders in Detroit. And let's start by naming them and identifying them for the group. Jared Fleischer, Vice President, Rock Family of Companies. Jared? Welcome. Kim Ray is Managing Senior Counsel, Ford Credit. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. Not to be outdone, we have another Kim. Kim Yorchuk, who is Senior Counsel at General Motors. Welcome, Kim.
Thanks for having me.
Glad you're here. Okay, so we have heard a fascinating array of information regarding civil legal aid. But at the end of the day, the support for civil legal aid not only has to come from the community, from the courts, but it has to come from our corporate leaders as well. This has to be a joint venture in order to be successful. Economic development, pro bono, and access to justice are key components to any society's advancement. Let me start with Jared and ask you to talk about corporate responsibility and corporate opportunity as it relates to the development of community needs and access to justice.
Terrific. Well, it's a great pleasure to be here, and welcome to Detroit for those of you who are not from here. As I look at that picture, I realize I need to have more than one suit, so I'm adding that to the list. You know, a learning experience today. I don't want to match the headshot too closely, but we'll learn from this, sir. We'll learn from it.
You're so humble.
Yes. So, you know, at the end of the day, what I really want to talk about is the why. You guys heard previously, you know, the what in terms of, you know, our direct work with Michigan Legal Services and our support for the eviction defense program. But I want to get into the why. And, you know, I'm going to give you kind of maybe a contrarian answer. And there's a lot of reasons about the why in terms of how engaging in legal services work. And I'm a lawyer by training, by the way. I went to Harvard Law School and then forgot to pay my bar dues, so now I'm a non-practicing attorney, but I was a practicing attorney for a while. You know, obviously doing this work is a great professional development experience if you're, you know, doing corporate or law firm pro bono. You know, but at the end of the day, I really do believe it's about the value. It's about doing the right thing. And our company, as does General Motors and Ford, we call our corporate culture the isms. And it's series of sayings and value propositions that we live by. And one of them is do the right thing. And at the end of the day, the reason that I believe it is so important for corporations to support legal services is because it is one of the most effective forms of human services. It really and truly is. And, you've heard here today about, poignant stories of helping people through cases and controversies, okay? One of the things that we have found is that it is equally important to help folks navigate the legal and bureaucratic challenges of life, okay? So we provide a great deal of support, not just for eviction defense, but housing counseling. We expend resources to help folks, and a lot of it is legal or paralegal, to navigate business licensure processes or permit processes. I promised I wouldn't be political, but one of the reasons that, for example, a lot of folks are going to have challenges with Medicaid is because of getting through a legal process, right? So we truly believe that to have a more, prosperous economy where more people can participate and advance themselves, we have to help them navigate procedural barriers, process barriers, bureaucratic barriers, which are largely legal barriers or which the legal profession has a unique set of skills to help people navigate. And by doing that, not just cases and controversies, but helping folks navigate legal or quasi-legal processes, it's how you can unlock their potential, help them be full participants in society, and help make the society overall stronger.
As the corporate, well, let's go back to the Rocket family companies and the relationship with the Gilbert family, and this idea that economic development is good for the business side of the community, but it is good for the individuals who live in the community as well. Their concern, their support, and their well-being embellishes that which you do.
There's no question. We come from a very civic-minded company. Mr. Gilbert, our founder and chairman, Dan Gilbert, has invested over $1 billion philanthropically in the city of Detroit, and most of what he's done, even on the real estate side, properly understood, is real estate philanthropy. Won't receive a return on it any time in his lifetime. Dan used to feel compelled to say there's a business case for this. And forgive me, this is contrarian, but he would say, by giving our team members something to believe in, that this, what we're doing here is bigger than ourselves, it helps me attract talent, and it's going to help my company. There's a business case for being civic-minded. And I do believe that is true, but I also think it's more transcendent than that. I think at the end of the day, he does it, and he's instilled a culture in our company, like you see in General Motors and Ford, to do it because, we have means, we've been a successful company, and it's the right thing to do. And if we didn't do it, we wouldn't be, participating in our community to the best of our ability and making the difference that we can and should. So it's really a transcendent value. I push back on the notion that you have to have a business justification. You can do philanthropy and you can do pro bono legal work because you have the ability to do it, and it's the right thing to do, and it makes your community better and your society stronger.
It is not just the company, but it is those who are part of the company that make up its character. Kim Yorchuk, would you share with us some of your approach as chair of the Pro Bono Committee at General Motors about the importance of the individual lawyer who is in those companies doing very well financially as a member of the community, but the desire to share the knowledge, the skill, and the expertise that they have acquired with those who are in need. Talk about that from your perspective individually and as a corporate leader.
Sure, and I'll caveat this by saying I'm here also to take tips from Kim, who's been doing this much longer and much better than I have. I'm fairly new to leading the pro bono committee at GM's legal staff, but one of the things that I have learned very quickly is there is a great amount of passion and interest from the attorneys in doing something outside of their day job, right? Giving back to the community in a tangible, tactile way. And sometimes that can feel hard to identify an opportunity. It can feel overwhelming, right? Because we've been trained in so many times to learn this is your area, stay in your lane, be an expert, and going outside of that to do something outside of your day job can be challenging, can be overwhelming. And I think one of the ways that I've tried to connect with the legal staff and get interest increased is to absolutely partner with all the different pro bono organizations, the law firms, to identify small opportunities, right, where individual attorneys can make a difference. They can feel good about it. They can know that they're making a significant difference in the life of someone who otherwise might not have access to the legal services. And it's something as simple as filing an expungement or doing a driver's license restoration, which may seem, in comparison to some of the projects that we work on a day-to-day basis, an enterprise project for a global company, so tiny. But then you get there and you interact with the client and you hear their story and you understand the difference that having a clean record or having their license restored will have in their life, and the ability to give those opportunities to the legal staff and have them slowly build on that and feel comfortable that they can still learn new things. They can learn the process with the assistance of our partners who are super skilled and knowledgeable and have the training and have the staff and the expertise to help us as baby lawyers in that area learn and grow and feel that connection. And I think that the more you can make it real for people, they don't have to, I think sometimes we think about pro bono work, especially coming from a law firm, oh, I can't take, a litigation case, an appeal, a prisoner's right, I don't have the time, I don't litigate. And so it's also about being creative and finding opportunities like some of the people have mentioned today. They're outside of our normal thought process of what can we do for pro bono work? What can, we can help nonprofits look at their articles of incorporation and make sure that everything's in line. We can help with different IP matters sometimes, helping people register trademarks and things for small businesses or nonprofits. And so all of this to say that, I think there's a lot of interest. I think it can be overcome sometimes by trepidation and insecurity about not knowing. And that's why everyone in this room is so important, because I think the more I can learn and my colleagues can learn about all the different ways they can play a small role in the great work everyone here does, the more we can get everyone invested. And not only does the community benefit, but the attorneys on the legal staff do, because they feel they're doing more than just their day job, which is important, don't get me wrong. But you can feel a little bit disconnected from society. And I know I wanted to keep this short, but I did want to tell one short anecdote that I think illustrates this. When I was a baby lawyer at Honigman, I was supposed to be a labor and employment attorney. I got put in the commercial and bankruptcy department as a first year. I was crying about it. I don't know, I didn't even take secured transactions or anything that you need for this. And I was doing it, working lots and lots of hours, really feeling like, have I chosen the wrong career, right? And I said, how do I feel like a human again? And I ended up volunteering every Thursday night from like 9 to midnight at Children's Hospital in the emergency room as a volunteer, just like holding a baby so the parents could get a Coke or a water. And I just needed to feel connected to people, right? And just the small face of relief and a parent when they could take a deep breath during this really traumatic time really helped me restore feeling like, okay, I'm not just dealing with bankruptcies and money and people all day long. Okay, I'm still a good person, right? And I feel like I've been able over my career, especially most recently, to replicate that feeling with pro bono work. The relief on someone's face when they know that their record will be clean, right? And they won't have to disclose something on an application that happened 20 years ago that they've never done again, or they're able to, have a custody arrangement that's stable and they can, make work arrangements. It's just, so I feel like I've been chasing that, that feeling, and everyone in this room enables all of us in the private practice who don't get to do it every day to get back to that and do the right thing for the community. So just want to say thank you for that as well.
you know, fear goes both ways. The fear of a litigant having to go to court and face the landlords Nate talked about, the fear of a lawyer practicing outside of their practice area is also very real. But this is where Legal Aid Society comes in. This is where the legal aid community bridges the gap. Talk a little bit about that, the idea that because you have to ask people to get outside their comfort zone to play in this space, to actually represent people in an area that they have no knowledge of, as you've described. Talk about the relationship between law departments, law firms, and legal aid organizations as a way of addressing the issue of combating fear on both sides of the equation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's a real fear, and it should be a real fear, right? We take an oath not just to practice law, but to do it correctly. And that standard doesn't change just because the client is a pro bono client. And so people who take that seriously should. And so I think the law firms, the pro bono departments, the legal aid societies, they're integral. I mean, we can't do pro bono work without them because they have the expertise, the training, they give the comfort, and honestly, they give the correct level of understanding and knowledge for, it's still practicing law when you're pro bono, right? So you need to know how to do it, and just the calmness and the patience I've seen from the legal aid personnel and the firms to sit with us and explain and expunge it 1,000 times over and over again. Just the generosity of time and the space they hold for people who probably haven't had to learn something totally outside of their zone in years, and to enable them to do that, it's huge. I mean, there's no comparison for that, and it's so important that that work is there, because without it, we can't do our pro bono work.
This is a perfect time to pivot to Kim Ray. And at the end of the day, leadership is a tone that's set at the top. We do things because our leaders in our organizations, as you say, inspire us and encourage us and provide a way forward. The corporate community has had an incredible relationship with LSC over the years, and on every time there is an opportunity to discuss the budget of LSC, the corporate community has played a role. Talk about that, and the fact that practicing law and representing the company in Detroit extends beyond the four corners of this environment too.
It sure does. As you all know, or maybe you don't, Ford Motor Company has been a long-standing signatory to the LSC letter to Congress. But I think Rob is somewhere in the room. My colleague Rob Mussel and I have traveled to DC to actually talk to our Michigan representatives and senators, along with the State Bar Foundation. On ABA Day, our law firms also, Dykema has been a big partner with us on ABA Day. And we have had the tremendous opportunity to go in and tell our story and how LSC-funded organizations are directly tied to our ability to provide pro bono services in our communities. Nobody's knocking on the front door of Ford Motor Company saying, hey, I want a lawyer. It's not on our Facebook page, not gonna find it on TikTok or Instagram. The only way we can get out into the communities to serve the needs that are out there and connect all of the community with lawyers is through our LSC-funded organizations. You talk about, Kim, you talk about the training. It's so critical. When you think about a corporate pro bono program, and we have a long-standing one, we have documented policies, and we've got a committee, and we've got a tracking system, and we have all the things. But without LSC-funded organizations, it would fall on its face. And we've seen that in other global communities where there isn't that pipeline and our lawyers can't get out into the community. So 1,000%, we rely on this funding to be able to get our lawyers out into the community. We've told that story. We've told very specific cases that we've worked on, and they like to hear that. They like to hear how it has impacted their constituents, and we've been able to provide. We've had all these lawyers and all these hours, and these are how many clients we've served in your particular area. And it's been really, really moving to have those conversations. And even if you didn't vote for it, you still like to hear our story. You know, we're not always 100% on obviously getting the support, but I think it's been really important to tell our story, and it's always been very, very well received. And so, of course, we go beyond the signatory. We take every opportunity we can to advocate for this funding, because we know firsthand it's the key enabler to get our lawyers into the community.
Well, you know, you just hit the nail on the head when you said it's not enough to sign a letter. This requires the will, the courage, and the availability of leaders to put their personal and political capital on the line. And you have to be measured when you do that, because it's not endless in its supply. But it's so important in this case. I'd like for each of you to talk about that, the absolute critical importance of putting your money where your mouth is, not only talking the talk, but walking the walk at the same time, and the energy that is necessary to scale what we do. This is not just the Detroit community or the Cincinnati community or the Cleveland community. This is America's community. And if we're going to support the legal process and the access of all of our citizens, it is going to take scaling what we do. And those who understand how to scale are the corporate community. So if you would, just your thoughts about looking forward, how do we scale what we do? How do we really create that umbrella that covers this country with the protective access to legal services? How do you see it? What do we do?
Well, first of all, I think you go onto LSC's website and find those funded organizations and partner with them. And I've certainly had conversations. We have lawyers across the country, not just here in Dearborn, Michigan, but across the country, and many relocated during the pandemic. Yeah. And so our pro bono policy covers them across the country, and I've said, go to this website. These are the people you want to partner with, because we know that the funds are taken care of. We know that they're going to be great partners with our lawyers, and we know they're going to get us to where we need to be the most. So that's the very first thing I tell people to do.
Good. Jared?
I mean, it's a great question. My answer may be somewhat tactical, but I would presume that the main supporters of legal services are probably your law firms. They get it. I would also venture to say that General Motors and Ford are unique as corporations that directly support, LSC. Okay? I would presume that most corporations do not do what you do. And frankly, we don't. We kind of do it, we happened upon Ashley, and it's been very, very productive, and we, fund things that align with our priorities that happen to rely on the legal services community. But we did not have intentionality as a corporation that says we have a legal department. We should participate. We understand the value of legal services. We should participate in funding LSC. So, looking from a corporate development standpoint for LSC, it would seem like the opportunity to penetrate the corporate world more is, territory that is less plowed. And, I think the fact that, two of the greatest industrial corporations in the world do it is a great, precedent for why more and more corporations should do it.
Can I follow up on that?
Yes, you can.
I had the opportunity to go to the Association of Corporate Counsel, and I had a table, and I talked about our pro bono program, and I had a little flyer on things that we've done.
Before you do that, the Association of Corporate Counsel is not something everybody knows.
Oh.
Explain to them what that is, because it's very unique.
It's corporate counsel, it's in-house corporate lawyers, right, who all are part of this association. And I can't tell you, to follow up on your point, the number of people who came to my table and said, how do you get started? And they didn't have leadership support, and they didn't know how to get started. And so I gave out a bunch of business cards, I've talked to a bunch of people, but it's tone at the top, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Kim from General Motors. It's one thing to scale from the top, but it's also important to rise from the level of where all lawyers participate. How do we do that? How do we create that enthusiasm, that encouragement, and that initiative?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and the thing that kept coming to mind was just really finding ways to be creative. And pulling out those little opportunities, and small stones make a big house eventually. And I think the more, as we get a new generation of corporate counsel coming in, they have different work schedules, different ideas of what pro bono is, and just continuing to tap into not only the needs of the community through our legal aid partners, but also to poll the attorneys. And that's what I did when I came in a year and a half. I thankfully had the leadership support, there was a good system in place, but it was a little bit static and stale, especially given COVID. Everyone was at home, sort of struggling with opportunities. And the first thing I did is send a survey around asking people, what interests you? What would get you to sign up for a pro bono project? And listening to the legal staff, and then trying to find partners who have those opportunities. And on the flip side, going to those partners and saying, what have you got? And just seeing, I got an email this morning from one of our law firm partners about a couple programs I'd never heard of that were super cool. And I thought, you know what? I would love to sign our attorneys up for this. So it's really just, I think, instilling a breath of fresh air of sort of saying, I think people sometimes, especially, who've been out of private practice for a long time, have a vision of what pro bono work is, right? It's prisoner, all of which is important. But I think there's a slate of common things that people say, well, I'm not interested in that. I'm not a litigator. I don't know how to do this or that. And they don't know that the breadth of opportunities is huge. And there's so many different needs, and they can span all types of work, all types of issues, geographies. And so I think just taking stock of that and really doing a refresh of what's available and letting people know that there's something there for you, and it doesn't have to be, turning the earth around. You can do a little bite here and there and make a huge impact, and use your expertise or learn a new expertise with a partnership of the.
Let me end with a story. And I was never an in-house counsel. I was always a law firm lawyer. But I want to give you a story because I ended up being vice chair of the pro bono committee of my firm. And we were trying to find out how, as we've talked about, to encourage lawyers to participate. Well, it's interesting, one of the smallest satellite offices of our firm had 100% participation in pro bono. There was 25 lawyers, but the managing partner of that office was the leader in pro bono activity. And no one in that office wanted to be the one who did not do pro bono work. We took that model and we sent it to every office of the firm. This is a firm of about 800 lawyers, I think, at the time I was in there, with 20-some offices. And that became the standard, 100% in each office. It took us a couple of years, but at the end of the third year, we registered 100% participation of every lawyer. Everybody didn't do the same amount of work, but everybody had pro bono hours on their schedule every year. And when I left the firm and retired in 2016, it had a winning streak of 100% lawyers from that third year that we achieved it. How do we scale what we do? You're right. We have to be creative. We have to lead by example. And the tone is set at the top. Join me in congratulating our panel on a job well done.